is Hollywood, in general, anti-American? It's always telling to see what stories they choose to focus on, but nothing is more telling than what they consciously choose to omit. To make a movie about a historical event and consciously choose to omit and ignore the most iconic snapshot of that moment. Like hypothetically a movie made about Iwo Jima and purposely skipping the moment where the flag was raised on that hilltop. Or a movie about the World Trade Center terrorist attacks and decide to, just skip the moment of the firefighters raising the flag. But these moments pale in comparison to arguably the most iconic snapshot ever. The first man ever on the moon standing next to the American flag he planted. Yeah, that would never happen in a movie, right? Well, it did. And after backlash, now they released a new trailer for the movie First Man with flags everywhere. That'll fix it, right? I'm Ben Davies. This is Pure Hollywood. Controversy surrounding the new movie First Man has been talked about a bit, but now the studio is starting to roll it back a bit. Apparently there are moments in the movie where you do see the flag on the moon, but certainly not Neil planting the flag or this iconic moment. But this cinematic choice was absolutely no accident. The writer openly defended not having that moment and spoke on behalf of an American hero, saying that Neil Armstrong would have been disappointed by the controversy. One of the reasons the director chose not to have this scene, he said, quote, "This movie's about one of the most extraordinary accomplishments not only in American history, but in human history." Well, thanks, I guess we didn't know that, and that moment totally would have ruined it, wouldn't it? Some of Armstrong's grandkids were promoting the movie and said, quote, "The filmmakers chose to focus on Neil looking back at the Earth and his walk to the Little West crater." Yeah, in that 2.5-hour runtime, there's plenty of time to have Neil walk to a divot on the moon and sit there, but not time for him to plant the American flag, one of the most iconic moments in all of human history. But was this all intentional? Well, Ryan Gosling did go on to say, quote, "I think this was widely regarded in the end as a human achievement, and that's how we chose to view it." Gosling later said, "I also think Neil was extremely humble, as were many of these astronauts. Time and time again, he deferred the focus from himself to the 400,000 people who made this mission possible." Right, so I forgot, was that Neil's flag or was that the American flag that represents all those 400,000 people? That is exactly the point. That's literally what this flag in this moment would represent. The country that was founded not on race or class, but rather a creed of freedom, of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness that everyone can be a part of. And side note, little history lesson, do you know why these men died and countries were literally in a race to the moon? Because there was oil there. No, I'm just kidding. There was no financial gain in this. It was because it was a war. The Cold War. A war of ideologies, of submission and control in the Soviet Union, and the freedom promised by America and the Western world. And each accomplishment, each victory was a stack in the argument for what the future of the world would be. And the ideology of freedom was losing. The Soviets had the most powerful weapon in the world. They sent the first satellite into space and the first man into space. And the world began to believe that subjugation and authoritarianism may be the better way to go for humanity. A victory needed to be won, and that is when JFK made this famous speech. JFK said, quote, "For the eyes of the world now look into space, to the moon and the planets beyond, and we have vowed that we shall not see it governed by a hostile flag of conquest, but by a banner of freedom and peace. Yet the vows of this nation can only be fulfilled if we in this nation are first, and therefore we intend to be first." This was the only reason Neil stepped on that moon. This was not a human experience together. There was no technology shared between the Chinese, the Russians, and the United States. This was a race for the hearts of the world, to see which ideology would release the greatest potential for the human race. And thank God it was an ideology of freedom. And thank God a flag of peace made its mark on that rock for the world to see. And so go pound sand if you don't think that moment is important to capture for the world to see. But thankfully, I was not the only one upset by this purposeful omission. And the studio released a third trailer for the First Man movie. Because the first trailer only had a shadowy American flag in the distance at a gravesite. This one, there's flags and emblems everywhere. To show the audience, we're not anti-American. We just purposely choose to omit that one specific moment. Well, I guess we'll just have to wait and see how the viewers react when the movie's released. But personally, I hope, because this movie looks so good and it's such an incredible story and moment, I hope they actually did shoot this scene just in case and purposely chose to keep it out. And then now they're gonna add it back in. That would be awesome to me. I'm Ben Davies, this is Pure Hollywood. And another fantastic news, you can now download the Rebel app and take me with you wherever you go to get exclusive content in the entire Rebel lineup.